Continuing our study in 1 Peter, we're going to look at 1 Peter 5, verse 1. So, I exhort the elders among you, as a fellow elder and a witness of the sufferings of Christ, as well as a partaker in the glory that is going to be revealed. So Peter is about to talk to shepherds and elders. He's going to talk to people leading the local church. And as he talks to people leading the local church, he gives some of his credentials to do so. Number one, he says, I'm a fellow elder. So he's a fellow local church leader in that way. Secondly, a witness of the sufferings of Christ. It's kind of an interesting take here, a witness of the sufferings of Christ, especially when you consider that Peter, when he witnessed the sufferings of Christ, it was actually a moment of his greatest failure. And he highlights that here. It would be very natural for people to associate him with his denials. And here he identifies himself as a witness of the sufferings of Christ, a time when he, in some ways, put himself at danger because of how he related to Jesus and Jesus' sufferings. Put himself at danger because he stepped away from Christ. He went, there's a phrase, beyond the pale, if you've ever heard of that. It actually comes from the 12th century Irish countryside, outside of Dublin, which Dublin at the time was under English control. And outside of that area, the immediate area of the city was known as the Pale. And if you extended out beyond that, you'd be where tribal warlords and tribal kings were, and it would be very dangerous. They lived an uncouth kind of life. And so you would be seen as going beyond the pale, meaning you would be acting in a way that would be typical of those uncouth, uncultured people who lived outside the city limits. You would be beyond the pale. Well, Peter went in that way beyond the pale. He went and made decisions that put him away from Christ. He ended up getting restored in John 21. But nonetheless, they put him there. He identifies that interestingly. And perhaps that's to set up what he'll say in a little while about the roaring lion that is the evil one. Perhaps it is to set up what he'll say about humility as opposed to pride. We'll see that when we get there. But for now, he identifies himself as a fellow elder and a failure who witnessed the sufferings of Christ. And he identifies himself as a fellow partaker in the glory, someone who has been rescued by the gospel. So Peter is a leader, Peter as a witness to the sufferings of Christ, and as I mentioned, that does highlight his failure because that's where his lifestyle was at when he witnessed the sufferings of Christ, and as a fellow partaker in glory is about to exhort them in regard to pastoral ministry. So as it comes to pastoral ministry, we'll pay attention to what Peter said, because he knows what it is to live in that role, and he knows what it is to endure sometimes the hardship that can push you a little too far. May the Lord bless you today.